Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. My name is Maria Fernanda Wozmowski, and I am the Deputy Director for Programs at the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arsht Latin America Center, where I also lead our Central America work. Welcome to another Leaders of the Americas, where we spotlight leaders from the Americas, from both the public and the private sectors, to discuss some of the most important topics for the region. And today, we welcome Mr. José Gregorio Baquero, Chief Executive Officer of Corporación Multiinversiones Foods, CMI Foods. Jason Marsek, Senior Director of the Adrian Arsht Latin America Center, will more formally introduce José Gregorio as they sit for a one-on-one and discuss CMI's work in the region, U.S. Central America ties, nearshoring, and other issues. The timing of this meeting is not coincidental, as it takes place on the eve of the Celebración de Independencia in 5 countries across Central America: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. It also takes place on the eve of the Hispanic Heritage Month in the U.S. During this Central America Week, the Center intentionally turns its attention to Central America. With this campaign, we highlight the global importance of the region. So please, if you're listening in, tuning into our event today, follow our work on Twitter at ACLatam and with the hashtag Celebrate Central America. This year, we are happy to be featuring 4 ambassadors from the region and 7 members of Congress as part of this campaign. José Gregorio, I regret that I'm not in the studio with you. Thank you for joining us as our featured speaker during this important week. As well, I am excited to announce that this Leaders of the Americas marks the first official event in our year-long partnership with CMI. Over the next year, ALAC and CMI are committed to highlighting and strengthening the role of the private sector in fostering economic opportunities in Central America, while creating a forum of constant evidence-based dialogue around Central American issues in Washington, D.C. We will focus on key themes such as job creation, human capital, migration, energy, and food security. Over the next year, we will convene a Central America task force, host a number of private roundtables from which we will produce at least 2 policy papers, and then, as part of the summit in 2023, the findings and recommendations of this year-long partnership will be shared and discussed. At the summit, we will also announce next steps around the implementation and follow-up of those recommendations. But with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jason, at the studio to converse with today's Leaders of the Americas, José Gregorio Baquero.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria Fernanda, and welcome again, José Gregorio, to our house here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the Atlantic Council. It's great to have you with us for our latest Leaders of the Americas conversation. José Gregorio, you bring great insight to this conversation on opportunities for greater private sector investment to enhance overall prosperity in Central America, which is a key priority for the Adrian Arsht Latin America Center and for the Atlantic Council. You've worked with CMI since 2009 as a consultant and advisor, a member of its board of directors, and in 2018 took over as CEO of CMI Foods. And I look forward to getting into our conversation. As CEO, you've helped brilliantly navigate CMI Foods through the COVID-19 health crisis, accelerating innovation in its processes, and also advancing digital transformation within the company. And you've also spearheaded an ambitious vision looking to 2025, anchoring food security, job creation, and economic growth to the overall strategic business plan for CMI Foods, all the while ensuring many happy customers, like myself, can eat a pollo campero. We'll get into that later as well. So we're going to start off our conversation by looking at the global effects of the company's model, then transitioning to U.S. Central America ties. We'll look at nearshoring and the role the public and private sectors could have in working together moving forward. But let's start off by sharing an overview. We were having this conversation before the event began, but an overview of the footprint of CMI, both CMI Foods and Capital in Latin America, and also how has the company grown since 2018 when you became CEO, and what has been maybe some of the nuggets of success, some of the keys to that success in the last few years?
Well, Jason, first, thanks to you and the Latin Council for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. As Maria Fernanda said, on the eve of the independence of Central America. And I'm here not only for this meeting, but also because tomorrow we are inaugurating one of our number 85 Pollo Campero in the U.S. So it's a symbol of pride to be here. And we're very proud for that success of Pollo Campero.
Where is that going to be located?
It's in Gettysburg.
Okay.
And but let me first turn into CMI.
Yes.
So not a lot of people might know CMI. CMI first is a family-owned business. We are a multi-Latina, originated in Central America. And that has important connotation because a family-owned business. We have been here for 100 years. We were founded by Don Juan Bautista, which is the granddad of our current generation of shareholders. He was a Spanish immigrant, started with a small store in Guatemala, and from that we have been growing into what CMI is today. CMI has two major businesses or business grouping, CMI Foods, which I lead, and CMI Capital, which is led by Quique Crespo, the CEO of CMI Capital. In CMI Capital, our businesses are energy. We're one of the largest renewable energies producers in the region. We have almost 1,000 megas of capacity. We also have a financial branch and a real estate development business unit. In CMI Foods, we do everything related to food, everything that is eatable. We take care of that. We are close to 42,000 team members. We are present in 16 countries, but in 11 countries we have direct operations for those 42,000 team members. We are present in the Americas, in the US, Mexico, Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and Ecuador. What do we produce? Well, a bunch of things.
Yeah.
We are the largest importers of grain in Central America and the Caribbean. We import, we move around 3 million metric tons a year. Everything starts with grain, with corn, with wheat, with soybean, because that's what we need to feed the chickens. That's what we need to produce flour. Then that grain goes into our mills to produce animal feed, to produce flour, wheat flour, corn flour. Then we have a consumer goods business in which we have pasta, cookies, soups, sauces, pet food. We have a flour business, bakery business.
Here. Yes.
Then we have our protein business in which we have poultry, pork, cold meats, processed foods. Then we have the restaurant business in which you mentioned one of our key brands, Pollo Campero, but we also have brands like Pollo Granjero, Don Pollo, Pollolandia, which for the people from Honduras, Pollolandia is a leading brand in Honduras. We have 380 Pollolandias in Honduras. I was there just last week on the Latin American Poultry Congress. In the US, we have, as I said, 84 Pollo Camperos, because tomorrow we're going to have 85, and it's most of our thriving business. Something that is important for us is, as a family business, is to reinvest. We clearly have been here for 100 years, and my job is not to lead CMI for the next 1 or 2 years. My role is to set out directions that will help us continue to grow over the next 100 years. For that reason, one of the things that we are also here and today announcing is the investment we're going to make over the next few years. It's an investment that is on our business plans. In total, it's about $1.8 billion. 800 of those millions of dollars is going to go into CMI Capital, about $1 billion in CMI Foods, And that investment in CMI Foods is a key pillar for development of our countries, is a key pillar for creating good jobs, is a pillar for creating food security, and it's going to be based on a series of things. One is to fuel innovation and new technology. And when we talk about innovation and new technology, it's new technologies that could help us do things more efficient. New technologies for production, new technologies in digital, new IT. But also that innovation is getting into new categories. Because something that we do as multi-Latina and family-owned business is we're in the region.
Yeah.
So what do we do with our earnings? We reinvest in the region. So we are also looking for opportunities to expand into new categories. Just this past year, we expanded into 3 or 4 new categories. We started in the categories of chocolate cookies with a brand like Choco Wow, which is the best chocolate cookies you have ever taste at a very accessible price. We enter into the mayo business with Mayonesa Campero in Guatemala and El Salvador. We enter into the soup business with La Cantonesa, Oriental Soup, and Mi Sabrosita in Dominican Republic. We enter into the premixes business to help bakeries and pastelerias, basically with a set of premixes and frosting. So that's part of the investment. So new technologies, new categories, new R&D. The other part of the investment is in infrastructure. One of the things that is constant in CMI has been the growth. We did an analysis, and over the last 40 years, we have grown around 10% per year. And in fact, over the last 3 to 4 years, we're growing even faster.
No.
And what that means is we need more plants. We need more capacity. We need more capacity in our flour mills. We need more capacity in our chicken farms. We need more capacity in our processing farms. We need more restaurants. Because I discussed before the Pollo Campero in the US, but even in Central America, Pollo Campero and our other brands like Don Pollo and Granjero, they're growing very fast. Just this past year, Granjero Don Pollo is basically fried chicken to go. We have about more than 1,000 points of sale. And this past year, we opened 100.
Oh.
So 100 in a year. That means basically 2 new Pollos Campero Granjero per week. And that requires a lot of investments. And also part of that investment is going to come into the US, in where we have a strong and very aggressive plans to grow Pollo Campero in the US. I said we currently have 85. We have plans to build around 80 more on the next 2 to 3 years. Next year, we're going to open 35, 25 company-owned restaurants, 10 franchises. In fact, just before I mentioned to you that we're also opening on iconic places in the U.S. You were told me from Chicago, so we're opening one in Michigan Avenue and Chicago Avenue.
That's great.
Hopefully, before Thanksgiving, we're going to be opening one in Herald Square near Macy's in New York, and it has to be before Thanksgiving because we have to be there before the parade. So for everybody going into the parade for Thanksgiving, please eat at Pollo Campero. You'll have the best chicken meal you ever have.
Now I'm going to make my road trip based on the Pollo Camperos across the United States. But let me just drill down on this point, Jose Gregorio. I mean, this is impressive. I mean, this is CMI Foods, a Guatemalan-owned company, announcing today $1.8 billion in additional investment into not only the region and into the company and supporting jobs, but also that investment's also coming into the United States, given the footprint that CMI Foods has across the United States. You mentioned infrastructure, you mentioned the product lines, you mentioned innovation. What was also, maybe if you pull back a little bit further, when you think about this investment and the desire to make this announcement now, what were some other factors that led you and CMI Foods to say this is the moment to really double down on our footprint and our investments across the region and in the United States?
Well, in our case, some people said that look at crisis as problems And the past 3 years has been, as we say in Central America, bien alegres. So much fun. And in reality, what we have seen in these 3 years, is an opportunity to double down on growth. I mentioned to you that traditionally we were growing at 10%, which is a lot. Over the last 3 years, we have grown almost 50%. So that means
number, yeah.
Per year around 15% CAGR, and that has put a strain in us. And thank God we also have the commitment of our shareholders. They believe in the region, they believe in CMI, they believe in CMI Foods, and our job is to make sure that we set the direction, that we invest. Some people say it's a bet, it's an apuesta. But in reality, it's not a bet, it's not an apuesta, because a bet is something that you are not certain of the result.
Yeah.
But we have been in the region 100 years. We're going to be here. So we know that this investment will pay off. We know that this investment will create prosperity, will create food security, which is very important to our countries, will help improve the nutritional levels of the people in Central America, which is key for development. And at the end, it's what's going to help us for the next 100 years in CMI.
That sounds great. And prosperity, food security, overall lifting the investment, these are key issues for the Atlantic Council and areas that drive the work of the Adrian Arce Latin America Centers. We're looking at how do we better partner with Guatemala, with the region, and enhancing those opportunities for prosperity, which leads to my next question. The United States, overall, the U.S. government, the Biden administration, has dedicated a lot of attention, effort in prioritizing Central America, especially the northern Central America, from the get-go of the administration. Vice President Harris, of course, has her call to action, and the Partnership for Central America as well has announced billions of dollars in additional investment towards Central America. From your perspective as CEO of CMI Foods, what else could be done? What else could the U.S. and the international community do to enhance those opportunities for local investment in the countries of Central America?
Well, first, Jason, I want to say that especially the relationship that we have between CMI and the U.S. Is very close and is very important. And our relationship with the U.S. has 3 components. As I said before, we have Pollo Campero in the U.S., 84 restaurants, sales of 230. We buy about $100 million of local products in the U.S. We employ almost 3,000 people. We also import almost $1 billion of goods from the U.S. into CMI, especially CMI Foods, as raw materials, as equipment. And in addition to that, we also buy locally from US-based companies. Companies as PepsiCo or the local bottler of PepsiCo, like Griffith Foods, which is our provider of the flavor and the ready from Campero. And that's probably another $80 billion, $80 million. So in total, the relationship is very close. So it's probably one of most important trade partners for CMI Food, if you were to see it as a trade partner. And I think that the governments in general can help us in many ways. One of the ways we were discussing early this morning is provide clarity of rules. And clarity of rules for everybody.
Yeah.
For locals and for companies coming in to invest in Latin America and Central America. Sometimes those rules are not the same. Sometimes the people or the request for local companies are a bit different from companies entering the market. So we strongly believe in free trade. We strongly believe in competition. In fact, we are here in the most competitive QSR market in the world. Yeah. With Pollo Campero, I told you in Chicago that we're going to have that restaurant that we're going to build is going to be on the most competitive block in the country, because we're going to have a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, a Chick-fil-A, and a Campero. So it's going to be really fun. But you have to be clarity of rules.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we need also is more investments in things like infrastructure. So we need to improve things like ports, the roads, communication. That's key. Education. So one of the opportunities that we as Latin America and Central America provide for international companies is that we have a huge percent of young people. So that huge percent of young people is an opportunity, but also a challenge. It's an opportunity because it's a young labor force. It means more consumption, it means growth, but it also means that it needs to be educated.
Yeah.
So something that we need is to invest in education. And even before education, we need to invest in nutrition. One of the challenges that we still have as a region is we need to have a lot of desnutrition or malnutrition, undernourishment. So we need to combat that. We are doing that at CMI Foods. We have programs. We have programs with La Fundación Juan Bautista Gutiérrez, but there's much more that needs to be done. And it cannot be done alone by the governments. It cannot be done alone by the private companies. It have to be done in conjunction. It have to be a partnership because the challenges are tremendous, but they can be done and they can be overcome.
And as you're talking, this all goes into the equation about nearshoring too, right? There's
Correct.
so much conversation right now because of the COVID crisis, because of trade conflicts, supply chain disruptions, about bringing greater production closer to home and greater production to the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah. And nearshoring, I think, is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for countries like the U.S. It's a great opportunity for countries like ours in Central America for many reasons. Mm-hmm. For the U.S., it's the opportunity to have production close to home. And it's also the opportunity to have, let's say, and I don't want to, production in countries which are closer and friendly to home. Mm-hmm. We have the same belief. Tomorrow we're celebrating our independence. We are believers of democracy, and that basically have a strong ties to the U.S.
Common shared values.
Common shared values. We have the Western values, and it's easy to understand ourselves. So that's an opportunity for the U.S. and also for Central America. It's an opportunity to have a market there, mm-hmm. to have new developments, but also for that new nearshoring, which is an opportunity that's beginning to emerge. We also need not only the investments for companies, but also from governments in that clarity of rules, in infrastructure. So we have things like we need to improve, for example, our ports. So we need to improve port facilities. Mm-hmm. The capacity in ports is not sufficient. And again, for that, we need to have partnership between the private sector and the government to do that investments, to do those investments, not thinking on the next government term.
Yes.
Thinking on the next 15, 20 years. Because when you ask me about the investment on CMI, why do the CMI shareholders are willing to invest? Because they're thinking long term. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you think of the next 2 years, you probably will never invest.
Yeah.
But you're thinking about the next 10, 15, 20 years, that's basically the time frame you need to have to do those investments.
And Jose Gregorio, from your perspective at CMI Foods, when we think about nearshoring, it's an incredible opportunity to advance formal job creation,
correct,
advance opportunities for broader economic prosperity in the region, Guatemala, Honduras, but the broader region writ large. How do you see that as potentially an opportunity to also reduce some of the migratory pressures that are, of course, of concern here in the U.S. are one of the reasons in which VP Harris launched her call to action to provide for that greater opportunities for prosperity, with the idea that prosperity ultimately makes migration an option rather than a requirement.
Well, I think it is, Jason, because if you see people that leave, normally they leave for economic opportunities. Mm-hmm. So they leave to seek something better for them.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to, I would also stop, but basically to tackle that issue is to create those jobs. I think nearshoring is one way, but I think the other way is also the type of investments that we're doing in CMI, the announcement that we're making. Just to give you an example, I said that in CMI Foods we are 40,000 team members. We have about 10 of those team members between Ecuador and Panama. We have about 30,000, a little bit more in Central America. In Central America, over the last year, we created about 2,500 jobs.
Okay.
So 2,500 jobs in 1 year. And those jobs are good paying jobs, are stable jobs, are jobs with a company like us that as a family-owned company, we strive for the wellness of our team members, of our employees, that we provide benefits, and that's the kind of actions that will ensure prosperity, and at the end will help to tackle that issue of immigration, which is an issue for everybody. It's an issue for the U.S., but it's also an issue for Central America because we're also losing our labor force.
Yeah, yeah. I always say some of the best workers, the most motivated workers, are the ones who often end up leaving because they're motivated always to improve their lives, and those are.
And one of the things also is that a lot of the people that come here are really high. The work standard is incredible. Mm-hmm. So as people that come here, they're willing to sacrifice. They work long hours. They are loyal. They have great values. Yeah. And we want to keep them.
Yeah, exactly the kind of employees that the CMI Food wants back home. Now, Jose, looking at our upcoming work together that we're also incredibly excited about and excited for all the apoyo of CMI Foods. The private sector, of course, has a really large role to play in the region's inclusive economic development. We talked beforehand about what kind of conditions are needed, infrastructure, education, clarity in rules. But how else can the public and private sectors optimally, in an ideal scenario, collaborate even further to be able to create economic opportunities in Central America that haven't been created thus far?
Yeah. Something, Jason, that we are doing in our programs that we can give a boost are entrepreneurship programs that we have in CMI. Mm-hmm. So we have several of those programs in which we create opportunities within CMI Foods for small entrepreneurs. Let me give you an example. We have something called Casas del Pollo Rey, which are small franchises that they sell chicken. They sell refrigerated chicken. They also sell cold cuts. Basically, they are run by third parties, small entrepreneurs, mostly women. We provide to them training. Actually, we have a program with the IDB Invest, in which we have a line of credit, a loan from an IDB. That loan is also to increase infrastructure, but also to provide that training to those thousands of dueños de Casas del Pollo. That's an opportunity because you give them the opportunity to have not only a job, but also a business that in those cases pays more than basically salario mínimo or the minimal salary. We have similar programs with our flour business. So we have a program called CDCAP, which is Centro de Capacitación de Panaderos. We have trained more than 160,000 future entrepreneurs of bakeries. So that's something that we're doing as a private sector, but more could be done. For example, more could be done, for example, if some of these entrepreneurs have access to credit, because some of the issues that they have is they want to do it, we can provide some credit, but at the end, we're not a bank.
Right, right.
So if we can find a way to provide more credit to these people, they're hard job or hardworking, they're motivated, we can train them, they probably need more access to capital.
Yeah.
And those are examples of things that we're doing, but we could do more.
Yeah, and there's probably opportunities for government to be able to provide additional incentives, additional training and additional kind of opportunities for access that kind of builds off of the work that a company like CMI is doing in that.
And one of those examples, as I mentioned, is that partnership that we have with the IDB, because that's a partnership in which they have provided some knowledge, of course, the funding, and we have applied that knowledge and funding into how can we train those entrepreneurs, those owners of Casa del Pollo, to be better empresarios, better businesswomen. And something that's important, as I mentioned before, most of those owners of Casa del Pollo, they're women. So it has a dual role. So creating new jobs, creating new entrepreneurs, but also helping basically raise the development of women in our countries.
And that's been one of the areas of focus here at the Atlantic Council as well, as we've been looking at kind of how to rebuild from the COVID pandemic, as prioritizing the importance of small and medium-sized enterprise growth, and especially women-led businesses is really being the key to the future of the region. Jose Gregorio, as I'm looking to my next few months, I have a few additional things on the agenda. I'm going to change my plans tomorrow for the Pollo Campero opening here in the DC area. Then we got Chicago, Herald Square in New York, so a lot of excitement, but I'm particularly excited about the work that we'll be doing from the Atlantic Council, working with you and CMI Foods over the course of the next year to really raise these issues of importance and raise also the role of a Guatemalan-owned business, a business like CMI Foods, CMI Capital, that's investing not just in your announcement today of the $1.8 billion investment, investing not just in your own country, but also investing here in the United States as well, and creating jobs here across the United States. So we look forward to working together and creating more opportunities for economic prosperity in Guatemala and in the Central America region writ large. So thank you all very much for joining us today. For this episode of Leaders of the Americas. It's been my real pleasure to have this conversation with the CEO of CMI Foods, José Gregorio Baquero. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jason, to you and the Atlantic Council for the opportunity, and looking forward to seeing you in one of our Pollo Camperos. But remember that CMI Foods is more than Pollo Campero. You can basically have breakfast with pancakes done by gold medal pancake mix. You can have lunch in Pollo Campero, then you can have dinner with a good chicken, either pollo rey or pollo indio, Mr. Pollo, with pastaina or pasta bruni, and putting a little bit of Campero ketchup.
Perfect.
On that pasta.
My day is now complete. My menu is set for the next few days. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Jason.
Thank you very much.